Uh, Nice to meet you. Hello, my name is Sergei Timokhin. As you can see, I work in testing since 2011. Start as simple junior QA, and now I work as software development engineer and tester. Very long title. And I also don't divide automation test and manual test because I believe automation just help us for testing. I have a YouTube channel. There are videos for junior plus engineers, and also have Telegram channel. Oh, I can see. And why we do care about integration testing? When I ask myself this question, first time I'm instantly memorize one memes. When we have a cup, of course, cup can pass a unit test because it can handle water. But when we try to do first integration testing, we damage our eyes and go to the doctor. Shit happens, yes. Does anybody meet this situation in the real world? Oh, yes. But you can see. I think you don't. You didn't get integration testing. Okay. But before I start my presentation, I need to explain my assistant because I can't do it by myself. Meet Bob. Bob is software test engineer. Bob is a good software test engineer. He cares about quality, and of course, he writes a unit test. And meet Alice. Alice is software test engineer. Alice care about the quality. It's her job, and she very experienced in exploratory testing. Sorry, I just down. I think it's better. Okay, once they have sprint planning, Bob Bob had a task for implement backend to his database, and Alice already have some task for testing, but she had a window for testing Bob's task. Okay, sprint was planning, Bob start coding, Bob start write unit testing, up local environment for database, test some happy path, and he think everything is okay, and move task to the test. Alice got a task, up environment, start testing, and when she made one simple response, she got an error. She went to the logs and meet this error. Does anybody know what happened here? Yes. Bob, forget about migration task. Don't blame Bob. Bob still a good engineer, of course. Task was reopened. Bob just switch context, fix the issue, and but time for Alice go away. Let's be honest, sprint was failed because task didn't complete at the time. And Alice asked about. Oh, sorry. Alice asked about herself. How can they avoid this situation in the future? And she very good engineer, and she decided she wrote end-to-end scenario on front-end side, and she decided to integrate this test inside the backend pipeline. So it's a good decision, and this decision get a lot of pros. And the first process, we run our test close with real environment. We start database, we start front end, we check everything, integration. And of course, we got a faster feedback because if we don't have a test on pipeline, for the first testing, we need to switch context. If you have feedback, if you have PCI, you QA engineers don't need to switch context before we got a similar error as I showed before. And of course, bug could be found in the early stage, not only in this integration bugs, but more complex bug could be found on the pipeline. But this decision has a drawback too, because it may be very difficult to start in the local environment, and I believe backend developer that doesn't run this solution because it's very complex. We need to start database, we need to start end-to-end scenario, and it's very hard. And of course, pipeline will be very slowly because end-to-end scenario could be consuming a lot of time. But this solution work for the first times, and let's go dive to the next sprint when Bob get a task for integration internal service with our backend, which wrote in early, and of course Alice will this task. Bob start coding, write unit test, write local environment. When he pushed changed into remote repo, pipeline failed. It's exact behavior because we extend data models and front-end test failed, and also front-end need to handle this change. But but this solution failed because we can't test our integration in the first view. Okay, how to prevent coupling from front-end? I think it's simple answer. We need to write tests inside the backend. And Bob and Alice decide to do this. Bob suggests to write some Python test in this fast API test client. And of course, Alice suggests to write some bash script for prepared environment. Additionally, we write one bash script for prepared environment, run test, and clean up our environment. And this solution is work. It's I call it one button solution because for the start test we need to run only one bash script or something else script. It doesn't matter which language we choose. It could be run on the local environment easily. Just go to the terminal and run this script. And test scripts also could be stored in the repo for our project. It's backend. It doesn't matter where. But the solution has drawbacks too, because we need to switch context from IDE to the terminal for the run test, and it can be, it could be miss our focus. And of course, if we want to start only unit test, because this test could be more slowly, we need to handle some additional configuration for it. But this solution works, believe me. Let me explain how it could be written for Python and PyTest. If you don't be familiar with Python, don't be afraid. I will explain. Don't see. Okay, let me explain. If you don't know, PyTest have service function called feature. This feature provide how to prepare some repeatedly task. It's like if you familiar with Jest, it's like before each, before any, it doesn't matter. In the 5-line code, we say framework it's feature, and the next lines of code we prepare our test client for the test API. It's as you can see in the 11 line of code, we yield this client. And for the use this feature, we, as you can see, is just a simple test for the get response. And the 6th line of code, we just provide our feature like additional parameter for the test function, and could use this client as usual. And this solution doesn't work without any additional preparation. Let me explain what I mean. It's just a piece of code for bash script where we prepare our Postgres container. It's the Postgres database. On the 4th line of code, you can see we Docker run with additional parameters. On the 7th line of code, we wait until Docker container is ready. The 3rd line of code, we run our test with PyTest, and the 15th line of code and the third care, we clean up our environment. As you can see, we provided some just additional parameters, booleans for more flexible configuration this run. For the full example, you could find it in the example repo. I will provide all links on the end of this presentation. But could we have a better solution for work inside the IDE without switch context, without have a lot of line of code for the bash script? And my answer is, of course, yes, because okay, we can use test containers tools. It can be used inside your IDE. You can start your test just from IDE. You can forget about managing third-party services. You don't need to start Docker containers, some internal services with additional bash script. And of course, you can put your service inside these tools. Let me explain. It sounds like magic, but it's not magic. Let me explain how it could be written. Or Python for our example repo. As you can see, is another feature. It's feature for prepared database container. On the 2nd line of code, you can see we just import Postgres container from test containers tools. On the 5th line of code, you can see we provided some additional parameters for our feature. Its scope means when this feature could be started. For this example, is session, it means test start per session. And after use, it means when we start our test, this feature runs automatically without any additional parameters. And on the end of the line of code, you can see we just provided some additional parameters for Postgres container, like image, port, username, password, and etc. And let me explain on the get test, which I showed before. You can see we don't provide any additional parameter, and this solution works inside your IDE. You can run test and do nothing. You don't need this additional bash script and anything. But let me explain some more complex example. When we want to provide our internal service. As you can see, is another Python file. When we create our class like hash service and just inherit it from Docker container class and provide some small parameters. And of course, we pack this in the feature for more flexible run this. And I prefer don't use after use because this hash service we need only when we post request. And more complex test, it's post request. As you can see on the 10 lines of code, we just provided our hash service as our internal service as additional parameters. And this solution works inside the IDE. Test container tools just run Postgres container, run our hash service container, and after test and clean up everything without additional bash script, without additional. It's not magic. It's magic. Okay, instead of conclusions, let me explain some metrics. If you don't feel advantage of first solutions on end of your fingers, I just provide some digits. And I choose four metrics, and the first one is maintenance complexity, second one developer involvement, third one launch complexity, and fourth detection speed. Let me explain each one more detailed. Maintenance complexity, it means how many lines of code do you need for maintain this solution. It's calculated YAML file, some additional feature, and everything else for start this solution. Exclude test each stored in the repo. The next one, the developer involvement, at how many impact developer have for use this solution, or maybe help fix something from this solution. The third one, detection speed, it's not about test run speed, it's about which phase could be bug detected. Let me explain. For the end-to-end scenario, it's a 6 phase. Third phase is EDM, second phase is terminal, third phase pre-commit hook, fourth phase is unit test, fifth phase Docker build, and the sixth phase is end-to-end test. And the last one is launch complexity, at how many steps we need to run this solution. And let me explain some. It's means we need to, for the run end-to-end scenario, we need to open terminal, start the backend, start the third-party internal service, and run end-to-end script. It's 4 phase. And let me explain some digit. End-to-end test cost our maintenance complexity as 500 plus lines. For the bash helper script, it's 100, and for the test containers, it's near 20 lines of code. For developer involvements, it's very interesting. It's more subjective metrics, but I built it from my experience. For end-to-end test, of course, that I don't believe for backend developer involved in front-end test. For the bash health script, it's could be 50-50 because developer could fix bash script, could write some tests in the Python, and test containers, it's full code approach, and I believe developer, and I see developer have a lot of impact. For the detection speed, we already calculate end-to-end test, and bash script 2 steps. It's from terminal, test containers inside the as SA. Launch complexity already calculated. For bash health script, it's 2, terminal, IDE, and test containers, IDE. And as I say, it's links for the some additional information. I provided two GitHub repos. First one is with example for this code. It's code work. You could run this test by your hand, and of course you could write additional test and make PR for me, and I will review it. And the second one is a real example in my pet project where I use test containers in the Rust code backend. And of course, Telegram, LinkedIn, and everything. Does anybody have any question?